Better Call Saul is one of the most popular and critically acclaimed TV shows of all time. It's filled with amazing and entertaining TV moments like
broke my boy. I broke my boy.
I'm in the middle of something. There's really no need to...
But interwoven into the amazing storyline and characters are tangible lessons about money that apply to everyday people like you and me. Better Call Saul shows us both the power and limitations of what money can do in our lives. Struggling with a car that barely runs? Been there. Getting stonewalled by your boss at work? Relatable. Putting your bacon in a cooler to save on electricity bills? I haven't had to do that one yet, thankfully. But as much as Better Call Saul has been great TV, it's also a great teacher of basic money lessons that we can take forward in our own lives. Here are the 4 important lessons Better Call Saul teaches us about money.
Yeah! Give it up!
Number 1. Some people will literally do anything to get it. Mark Twain once said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." And as we learn about Jimmy McGill, his lack of money and the insecurity that it builds within him is a common driver for a lot of his actions and decisions. Jimmy's a struggling lawyer trying to fake it till he makes it, answering his own phone in a different voice to act like he has a receptionist, and sharing an office with a water heater in the back of a nail salon. And this need to project and our success is something that's always existed, but it's more widespread now in the age of social media, where everybody's posting their highlights and we're all consuming endlessly all day. Jimmy continues this trend throughout Better Call Saul, showing his insecurity and using perceived slights by others as an excuse for blowing up or making bad decisions.
Makes you feel real important, huh?
Even once Jimmy has seen success, he can't help himself but to get dragged back down to the gutter in order to try to one-up someone who he thinks doesn't respect him. And that just drives him even harder to do even crazier things to make even more money.
Lightning bolts shoot from my fingertips!
And as much as we see Jimmy try to con person after person, he's just one example in the show of how people would do anything for money. Whether it's the 2 brothers literally getting hit by cars for payouts, or the Kettlemans embezzling $1 million, or the kids beating up Jimmy for his cash, or the guy he hires to steal the Hummels. And when you think about it, money is usually the primary driver for most of our daily activities. We get up and go to work to make money. We go to school in the hopes that one day we'll be able to make money. And if we take it a step further, think about how many spam emails you get every single day, or even spam calls, or how many times you hear in the news about someone trying to scam someone else. It's all in the pursuit of money. Now, we might feel differently about someone who steals food in the moment because they're starving, as opposed to someone who scams drivers into literally hitting them for cash. But at the end of the day, it speaks to the necessity of money in all of our daily lives and what lengths we'll go to get it. Number 2, relationships can be more valuable than money. As valuable and necessary as money is, relationships can prove to be even more valuable at times, and this shows up a bunch in Better Call Saul. Jimmy's a natural salesman, which is part of what makes him a good con man, but his ability to navigate relationships allows him to punch above his weight when it comes to being a lawyer, especially early on. The scenes in the courthouse are perfect examples of this. Time after time, Jimmy uses his relationships with others to make progress on things that he wants. Need specific court dates and times? Work the administrator with the stuffed animal. Want more lenient plea deals? Get with the district attorney, give him your Fritos. Have a high caseload because you offered everyone 50% off? Manufacture some quiet time in an elevator with the DA and work through your cases. But here's the thing, as much as relationships can help you, they can hurt you just as bad if they go sour. If we go back to the courthouse scenes, once people in the courthouse find out that Jimmy lied in court and represented Lalo Salamanca, their attitude towards him changes. All of a sudden, the things he was able to get accomplished became even harder because no one trusted him or saw him as someone they wanted to help anymore. The security guards he used to buy coffee for are now putting him through all the normal procedures with everyone else. The administrator wants nothing to do with his stuffed animals, and even his friend Bill doesn't want to deal with him. And this happens to us in real life as well, whether it's having to deal with an ex at work or having a boss that just doesn't like us. Anytime you have a bad relationship that prevents you from being able to succeed or make money, it's extremely frustrating. And even when it doesn't directly impact our ability to make money, it impacts the environment that we have to work in, which makes earning that money more painful than it has to be on a daily basis. We see this in Better Call Saul when Kim's association with Jimmy gets her sent down to do document review in the basement. Even after she lands a huge client in Mesa Verde, Howard has her wallowing away in doc review, unsure about her future there. Or even when Jimmy needs to be supervised at Davison, Maine by Aaron. His bosses can't trust him anymore, so it puts him in a position where he can't be himself at work the way that he wants to. It ultimately drives him to getting himself fired from Davison, Maine, because he can't stand it anymore. The reality is that relationships with others are a huge part of the workplace that can impact our careers in a big way. Maybe you know somebody who's hiring, and knowing them helps you get that interview or maybe even the job. But if you have someone out there that has a negative impression of you, whether it's justified or not, it can prevent you from progressing or getting that raise that you want. And this explains some of the issues between Jimmy and Chuck that drive a lot of Jimmy's obsession with money and status. After getting Jimmy out of jail, Chuck actually helps him get a job in the HHM mailroom to help straighten himself out. Inspired by his brother and his friend Kim, Jimmy decides to study law on nights and weekends and ultimately passes the bar to be a lawyer, just like his brother. But instead of pride, Chuck feels resentment that his slippin' Jimmy criminal brother is now allowed to call himself a lawyer, just like him. So even though Howard likes Jimmy's grit and determination, Chuck intervenes and tells him not to hire Jimmy as a lawyer at HHM.
What a joke! I worked my ass off to get where I am.
I thought you were proud of me.
That rejection is a catalyst for Jimmy deciding to take the darker road when it comes to the law. He was never going to be looked at in the same way his brother was, so he had to become something else. Relationships in general are a driving force in our lives, and they can be as messy and complicated as they can be positive and supportive. But when you combine them with something that's a necessity, like making money, it magnifies their impact on us even more. Okay, but let's talk about Jimmy McGill's transformation to Saul Goodman. Throughout the show, Jimmy seems to genuinely care about certain people in his life, and his grit and determination allow him to accomplish things he normally wouldn't have been able to. He was even able to solve his money problems and work at a highly respected law firm. So why did he end up completely transforming into Saul Goodman anyway? The reality is, the Saul Goodman persona is who Jimmy was all along.
It's all good, man.
Number 3, money doesn't change us. It just amplifies who we already are.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of.
When you stop to think about it, a lot of what we do and what we've decided are social norms really are about managing other people's perceptions so we can make money. You want to get a tattoo? Make sure it's in a place that can be covered up so you can still get a good job. Want that promotion? You better put in the extra hours so that they know you're dedicated. You crush that interview? Make sure you email them a thank you afterwards or they won't think you're serious. You want to seem like executive management material? Make sure you don't cuss at the company picnic. So fun fact, I actually did that last one myself in my corporate career, so whoops. But what if you had enough money and you didn't have to manage other people's perceptions? Would you make the same decisions? Would you act the same way? Jimmy's experience trying to make it as a traditional lawyer highlights this well. Even just how he starts each day in the courthouse with,
It's showtime, folks.
shows that he's simply playing a part that he feels he's required to play. In trying to get a job at HHM or even Davison, Maine, he's constantly balancing the financial benefits of the professional persona others expect with his natural tendency to want to bend and break the rules.
I tried to make it work. Really, I did. I'm just a square peg.
And the more Jimmy figures out how he can make money in his own ways, the bolder he gets and the less he plays by those rules. And this is true for us as well. If we didn't have to worry about money every single day, we'd be free to do and act however we wanted with less restrictions. There's a reason why they call it financial independence, because it literally means that you're not dependent on someone else for your financial well-being. What would you do if you didn't have to worry about how you're going to pay your bills each month? Or like we see in Better Call Saul, what if you're able to make money by doing what you do best and being yourself every single day without having to play by anyone else's rules? For most people, it's an exciting thing to think about.
Just tell me what to do. Whatever it is, I'll do it.
But that's exactly why money itself doesn't change you. It just provides you the freedom to be who you really are without restrictions and limits. But that includes both the good and bad parts of our personalities. Jimmy's insecurity shows up constantly throughout the show. He's always assuming the worst in conversations with his brother and with Howard, and his inability to take constructive criticism is obvious because he's made up his mind that the person he's talking to assumes that they're better than he is. Even in his interaction with Kim to sign the divorce papers, he chooses to be cold and indifferent to the one person that cared for him the most.
I guess it doesn't matter. Doesn't have to make sense.
Jimmy, now Saul, can never open himself up to be vulnerable, just choosing to put on another con, both to Kim and also to himself. And this is where the relationship between Kim and Jimmy really highlights his point about money. In the beginning, Kim enjoyed doing the cons with Jimmy because she grew up poor and had to take the hard road to get to where she was. She was dealing with an overbearing boss that she thought was treating her unfairly, and that only pushed her to wanting to find other ways to make money. But as time went on, you could see that her and Jimmy were slowly drifting apart.
You don't save me. I save me.
The cons were a temporary solution for her, but they were a lifelong mindset to Jimmy. And the fact that we see an older Jimmy, now called Gene, still conning and scamming people while casually working out of a Cinnabon proves that he just can't stay away. And Slippin' Jimmy is truly who he was all along. But that's not to say that people can't change or that we don't have choices in our lives about who we want to be. We absolutely do. And that brings me to the final lesson that Better Call Saul teaches us about money. It can't be the primary goal.
So you were always like this?
Number 4, for a meaningful life, money can't be the primary goal.
Just make money.
The reality for most of us, whether we like it or not, is that money, or the pursuit of money, takes up the majority of our lives. People work for 40 years until they're 60 plus, and then retire for 10 to 20 years. People spend at least half of their waking days at work instead of at home. It's no wonder that money plays such a huge part in how we feel about our lives on a day-to-day basis. Plus, you see stats like money and financial issues being the second leading cause of divorce and a leading cause of mental health problems, and it makes it seem pretty obvious that improving your money situation should be a goal that we all have, and I think it should be. But the point is, if you want to have a meaningful life or at least be content in your life choices, money itself can't be the primary goal, because the pursuit of money without purpose is ultimately an empty one, because without purpose, you won't know where your finish line is, or what you're willing to do or not do, and why.
This guy, any good?
When I knew him, he was.
That's how learning about money started for me. I was broke, on unemployment, and I had a family to support. They were my purpose, and they still are, even though our situation has changed a lot. But ultimately, they were the driving factor in my progress because they meant that much to me. And we see this over and over again in Better Call Saul. Even in the very first episode, where we see the contrast between Jimmy and Chuck.
The money is beside the point.
Money is not beside the point. Money is the point.
Chuck spent his life dedicated to the law and did very well for himself. But Jimmy stays focused on the pursuit of money itself. And you can go character by character and see their purpose and what drives them. Nacho's purpose is his father. Mike's purpose, his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter. Chuck's is the law. Howard's is his family's legacy business. Gus's, which we found out in Breaking Bad, is a burning revenge for his partner's murder. And even in Kim's case, her purpose isn't really defined at the end, other than she knows she wants it to be something more meaningful than what she and Jimmy are together.
I love you too. But so what?
And if we go back to the divorce scene, you can see the contrast in Jimmy's approach.
Have a nice life, Kim.
When he responds to being hurt by Kim by focusing on trying to make even more money.
Hey, sweet cheeks, who do we got next? Let's make some money.
And we see this approach every day on the internet. You have people that are insecure, maybe unsure who they are, and they use material things as a crutch. And that's not to say the material things are bad. We should all be able to enjoy things that we like. But ultimately, money and material things are a bad measuring stick of what's really important and meaningful in our lives. And this is apparent at the end of Better Call Saul, as you see Jimmy run scam after scam. He went from a guy with the grit and determination to pass the bar exam while working in a mailroom to an old criminal running an identity theft scheme on people at the local bar. His scams might still make money, but ultimately his life has no meaning. In the end, Jimmy sees this for himself and decides to confess in court. He does it to hopefully help Kim with her legal issues and also show her that the Jimmy McGill that she knew, not Saul Goodman, was still in there.
The name's McGill. I'm James McGill.
Even though it basically gave him a life sentence in prison, it was a chance to give his actions a sense of purpose after a lifetime of only chasing money. There's no doubt that money is important for all of us to live. But when your motivations for money are tied to a greater purpose, like family, community, or friendship, then it turns it into something that's bigger than yourself and gives your actions meaning. And ultimately, that's what really matters.
Well, there has to be more to it than that.
There's not.
And for more videos about money and becoming financially independent, click on the videos on the end screen or subscribe. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. See you guys in the next one. Peace.